Hello, my name is Phil Wright. I'm the Executive Director of Keep My Voice. In just a couple of moments after I make my remarks, I'm going to give Dave Bateman, who's the founder of Keep My Voice, the opportunity to say a few words as well. And we'll be happy to take questions from the press after. Thank you for being here today as we discuss the ramifications of the court decision and how it impacts the rights of Utah voters with regard to ballot initiatives. Let me begin by saying that in Utah, since our statehood in 1896, your vote has always counted. In fact, unlike any other state, your vote counts, not only counts, but makes a big impact starting at our neighborhood caucuses on the neighborhood level. In 2014, a group of well-connected, wealthy Utahns and some out-of-state cohorts threatened the Utah Republican Party, demanding that it change the process it used to advance its candidates to the ballot, or they would run a statewide initiative that, if approved, would do away with the Utah Caucus Convention system. Although the Utah Republican Party agreed to improve some of its processes, this special interest group, known as Count My Vote, moved forward with their initiative anyway. They chose a catchy and deceptive name, Count My Vote, to give Utahns the impression that prior to this new scheme, their votes didn't actually count. The original CMV plan was to end the convention process and replace it with a direct primary, where candidates could essentially buy their way on the ballot by paying a signature-gathering company to do the work. This plan would have essentially eliminated the ability for the average Utahn to run for political office by making the entry cost too expensive, and it would benefit the candidate with the most money and special interest ties. This scheme was concocted by liberal Republicans who knew that their ideology and candidates could not make it past the elected delegates of the Republican Party, who typically follow our conservative platform. Their first attempt in 2014 ended when they entered into a compromise agreement with the Utah legislature known as SB 54, which forced political parties to accept a dual path to the ballot, the convention and the signature gathering process. At the passage of SB 54, Count My Vote promised they would never again run their ballot initiative. However, in 2018, they broke that promise to the state lawmakers. By state law, Count My Vote had 316 days to gather signatures from the date they filed with the state. Afterward, county clerks have 30 days to verify those signatures. Utah law allows voters to remove their names from a petition during that time, ensuring all signatures have been verified and removed if wanted. The removal process is written into Utah Statute Section 205, subsection 3. Keep My Voice used this time to contact those whose names appeared on the CMV petition to authenticate their support of the initiative or to help them remove their signatures if they were misled or simply changed their mind when they were educated about the destructive nature of this petition. During the 30-day period, Keep My Voice helped remove over 3,000 Utah voters' names from the initiative. Nearly 60% of the people we spoke to removed their signature. 60%. We discovered the vast majority never read the petition, which is a requirement in Utah law before signing a petition. Many thought they were signing something totally different when a signature gatherer presented them with multiple petitions at once. And others said they never signed the Count My Vote petition in the first place, but were victims of fraud. To qualify for the Utah ballot initiative, an initiative must gather signatures to equal 10% of votes in the most recent election in 26 of the 29 Senate districts. This is roughly 113 signatures statewide. Many polls have been commissioned in Utah since 2014 that have stated numbers as high as 70% of Utahns supposedly supporting ending the caucus system. A recent poll they released said that 63% of Utahns support the Count My Vote initiative. That number would equal 1,963,080 people. Yet, after spending over $3,500,000 on their failed initiative attempts to destroy the Utah grassroots caucus system, they could not muster 10% of these supposed supporters. Where were those supporters? Obviously, like Count My Vote, they were only on the pages of the fake news. We salute the Utah Supreme Court for upholding the will of the people and sending a message to every other special interest group that no matter how much money they spend, they are still required to play by the rules, especially rules that protect the rights of voters to ensure their votes count. And we also praise the Utah legislature for having the foresight to make sure Utahns have the right to remove their names from initiatives. We hope that this victory will lead to another when the U.S. Supreme Court hears the Utah Republican Party's case against SB 54, which only came about due to the now failed initiative of Count My Vote. Our victory will be a win. Our victory will be a win for all Americans who value their constitutional rights, especially the First Amendment right of freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, and freedom of association. Why do we do this? Because freedom is always worth fighting for. Thank you. And now let me introduce Dave Bateman.
Thank you. Well, I will start out and just say that we are ecstatic that the Supreme Court has upheld Utah's election law, and they've made a ruling that Count My Vote will not be on the ballot this November. Yeah. Anytime you follow Phil Wright speaking, there's not much left to be said. That said, I want to thank the volunteers that made this possible. As you look behind me, I've spent a little bit to fight this battle, but that pales in comparison to the investment by the grassroots politics in Utah that has made this possible. I want those of you who are not paid by me to raise your hand right now. Okay, so pretty much hundreds of people have joined this effort to fight for our freedoms, to fight for the rights of political parties in Utah, to nominate our candidates the way that we choose. This is a right found in our Constitution. The Chief Justice in the Appeals Court, Justice Timkovich, recognized this when he made an appeal to the United States Supreme Court to hear the case on SB 54 and the unconstitutionality of SB 54. Unlike Keep My Voice, which is truly a grassroots movement, Count My Vote is not a grassroots movement. Count My Vote is a conglomeration of the most wealthy people in Utah and the most entrenched politicians in Utah who are not looking. They're the last people in Utah that need a louder voice. They have the loudest voice in all of Utah, and yet they want their vote to be counted even more, apparently. And that is not something that something that grassroots Utah politics is interested in. The people deserve a voice in this state, and there's an attempt to take that voice away. And that's why I'm personally involved in this fight, and that's why the people behind me and hundreds of other people are involved in this fight. One of the people specifically that I'd like to thank for their effort in this is Mike Elisa, a guy who oversaw the entire effort to go out and educate Utahns about the frailties of the initiative that Count My Vote put forth. Count My Vote went to the Supreme Court and they complained that the removal process is a problem, meaning that people who wake up and realize they signed something they didn't mean to sign and they want to remove their names, that those people don't have a right to wake up. Since when does our election law not encourage people to wake up and see reality? It's interesting to me, as I look at our initiative process in Utah, the problem with our initiative process is not the removal process, it's the signature process. Yeah. It's the process of going out and paying someone to go door to door, $2.50 per signature, carrying 3 initiatives, and they find whatever they have to say to get people to sign the initiative, when they know good and well that Utah election law requires them to read and be familiar with the initiatives they're signing, yet they convince people to sign when they know nothing about what they're signing. I went door to door with all the great volunteers behind this organization, and I found that 80% of the people that I talked to were told that the Count My Vote initiative was simply to get Mitt Romney onto the ballot. That's what they were told. They were deceived, they were lied to, and yet Count My Vote believes those people, when they come to an understanding that what they signed wasn't right, they don't have a right to remove their signatures. That's what they petitioned the Utah Supreme Court for, and they failed, and they should have failed. I make a request to the Utah legislature not to change the removal process, but to change the signature process. People carrying initiatives door to door should only carry 1 initiative, not 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 with 6 or 7 candidates that they're trying to get on ballots as well. I also asked the legislature to change the law so that people, when signing, have to check a box that they have read and are familiar with the initiative that they are signing, so they will not be defrauded. So they understand that liability and that obligation that they have when making this important decision to sponsor and to sign, put their name, good name behind an initiative. Lastly, I want to say that it is time for the Utah legislature to overturn SB 54. Is it okay for the government to step in and tell us how to run our families? No. It's not. Is it okay for the government to step in and tell us how to run our businesses? No. Is it okay for the government to step in and tell us how we need to choose leadership in our religions, in our churches? No. So is it okay for the state to step in to a private political party, a private association of people that believe a certain thing politically? Is it okay for the state to step in and force upon them the methodology with which they choose their leadership? No. It's not okay, and that's what's happening in Utah. And I ask all of you to join us, fight with us, to overturn SB 54, to empower political parties in Utah, and to preserve associative rights across this great state. Thank you.
We would be happy to take any questions that you may have. Well, I think I may have addressed that in my speech. Where are these 2/3 of people? You're quoting polls that have proven to be inaccurate. That's over almost 2 million people who should have been lining up to sign the Count My Vote initiative. Where were they? They don't exist. So I don't believe there are that many people who want to do away with the caucus system that has made Utah one of the greatest states in the nation for well over 100 years.